Ever wondered where the English language that you're learning right now actually comes from? This globally recognized language, with its rich vocabulary and complex grammar, has a history as intricate as its structure. It's the official language of over 50 countries and the lingua franca of many more, making it one of the most influential languages around the world. But how did it become so widespread? And how did it evolve into the English we know today? The origins of English are shrouded in mystery, with layers of influence from numerous other languages. This has sparked curiosity amongst linguists and language learners alike. Today we're going to delve into this mystery, peeling back the layers of history to uncover the roots of English. So gather your curiosity and gear up your imagination. Let's embark on a journey through time to understand the evolution of English language. Our journey begins around the 5th century with what we now call Old English. Let's turn back the pages of time to when the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, 3 Germanic tribes, made their way to what is now England. These tribes, each with their own dialects, played a substantial role in shaping the English language. Their influence was so profound that the language they spoke forms the basis of what we now call Old English. Old English was a complex language full of rich sounds and intricate grammar. It was a blend of the dialects spoken by these Germanic tribes, with each tribe contributing to the unique character of the language. Words like strong, angry, and under are remnants of this era and are still used in today's English. But Old English wasn't just influenced by the Germanic tribes. Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, also had a hand in shaping it. Around the 6th century, Christian missionaries bearing their faith and their language arrived in England. Latin was the language of the church, and it was soon incorporated into Old English. Latin words related to religion, education, and the arts found their way into the language. Words like bishop, monk, and school are examples of Latin's influence on Old English. However, it's important to note that Old English was a different beast altogether. Full of unique sounds and complex grammar rules, it was a far cry from the English we know today. For instance, Old English had a system of declensions where the endings of nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and determiners changed based on their role in the sentence. This is a feature that modern English has mostly lost. Despite its name, Old English would be almost unrecognizable to modern English speakers. But it's fascinating to know how our language has evolved over the centuries, isn't it? From the influence of Germanic tribes to the impact of Latin, every change has left its mark, shaping the language into the English we speak today. As we move into the 12th century, we encounter the Middle English period, an era marked by significant change and evolution in the English language. Now let's take a moment to imagine a world where 2 languages collide. That's exactly what happened in England in 1066 with the Norman conquest. The Normans, French speakers, became the new rulers of England. They brought with them a wealth of French words, which gradually seeped into the English language. This infusion was not just a sprinkle, but a deluge. It introduced a plethora of French words into English, particularly in the realms of law, government, art, and literature. Words like jury, evidence, art, and poetry are all gifts from the French. This linguistic merger resulted in a substantial enrichment of the English vocabulary. But the Middle English period was not just about vocabulary expansion. It was also a time of simplification. English grammar, which had been quite complex during the Old English period, began to simplify. Endings on words, known as inflections, started to disappear. Take, for instance, the Old English word huses, which meant of the house. In Middle English, this became simply houses. The language was becoming less about how words were formed and more about word order. This shift made English more flexible and easier to learn, paving the way for the language we know today. As the centuries rolled on, English continued to evolve. The Middle English period witnessed the creation of some of the most enduring works of English literature, including those by Geoffrey Chaucer, a pioneer who helped to standardize English spelling and grammar. By the end of the Middle English period, the language was beginning to sound more familiar to us. It had weathered invasions, absorbed foreign words, simplified its grammar, and was well on its way to becoming the global language we recognize today. Finally, we arrive at the modern English era, starting in the late 15th century. This was a time of great change and innovation, both in society and in language. The world was in the throes of the Renaissance, a period of renewed interest in the arts, science, and culture. This cultural revolution had a profound impact on the English language as well. The Renaissance brought with it an influx of Latin and Greek words into English. Scholars and writers of the time, inspired by classical texts, began incorporating these words into their work. This added a new layer of complexity and richness to the English language, introducing words like philosophy, physics, and literature, to name but a few. But the Renaissance wasn't the only force shaping modern English. Enter the printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century. This revolutionary piece of technology played a crucial role in standardizing English spelling. For the first time, books could be mass-produced, making them more accessible to the general public. As more and more people began to read, there was a growing need for a standardized form of English. The printing press facilitated this standardization, helping to shape the English language as we know it today. With the standardization of spelling, the English language began to stabilize. This doesn't mean it stopped evolving, of course. New words continued to be added and old ones changed their meanings. But the pace of change slowed down considerably. From the 17th century onwards, English started to look and sound like the language we know today. The grammar, the vocabulary, the spelling, all of these elements became more or less fixed. And while English continues to evolve and adapt, its core remains rooted in the modern English era. So when we speak or write in English today, we're participating in a tradition that's been centuries in the making. English didn't just stay put in England, though. Like a storybook adventurer, it journeyed far and wide, hopping from one continent to another. This global odyssey was largely due to British colonialism, which began around the 16th century and spanned several continents. As the British Empire expanded, so did the English language. This linguistic traveler found new homes in North America, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. It was not always a welcome guest, of course, but its presence was undeniable. In the aftermath of colonialism, English continued to spread, eventually earning its status as a global lingua franca. Today it's used in international diplomacy, business, science, and even the internet. It's become a bridge connecting different cultures, a tool for global communication. And that's how English evolved from a language of a few tribes to the global language it is today. Fascinating, isn't it?